6 o'clock.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Shaban, on this Friday evening, Friday the 20th of November 2020, corresponding to the 4th of Rabiul Thani, 1442. We are broadcasting live to Luton on 105.1 FM and our partner stations across the UK, including Sheffield Link FM, Peterborough, Salam, Derby, and Nottingham, and of course also broadcasting live across the UK via the Inspire FM app, via the Inspire FM website, and of course across all of those social media platforms as usual. We are live on Facebook, live on YouTube, so do tune in and join tonight's discussion, tonight's conversation. Plenty of ways to join us. Do remember to like us also on our social media platforms and leave us your comments with regards to the show, any of the topics that we're going to be discussing tonight. Last but not least, do join in to today's discussion. Do join in tonight's conversation. 01582 481 822 0779 481 822. Right, what have we got lined up for you this evening? We've got a number of topics for you lined up this evening. I think very, very interesting topics. We're probably going to get a lot of thoughts and a lot of comments on some of these topics. Firstly, we're going to be starting off with a very, very controversial report that emerged this week with regards to a Muslim prayer app. A Muslim prayer app which is really for people to come along and download Quran, download prayer app, but ends up that data of people who have been downloading the app has been bought the US military. Now, of course, that's been denied by the Muslim prayer app company, but we're going to be discussing what's been going on with regards to data security and privacy. We've also got Saudi. We've also got Pakistan. Pakistan apparently Imran Khan has said that there's been a lot of pressure that's been put on Pakistan to recognize Israel. Right. So we're going to be discussing who's been putting this pressure on Pakistan. How long is Pakistan going to resist this, and what is it after? Right. So we're going to be discussing that. Of course, the Palestinian president praised Pakistan over its refusal to recognize Israel. We've got a new campaign launched by Islam 21C, In Their Shoes. We're going to be speaking to Dr. Salman to explain what is this campaign, what are the objectives. We've got a Cage report, 20 years of the Terrorism Act. We're going to be discussing that with Brother Kerry from Cage to discover more about this report. We've got the Anti-Islamophobia Month, or the Islamophobia Month by MEND. We're going to be having a conversation with the representative of MEND. And last but not least, if that wasn't already enough, we're going to be discussing Ibn al-Arabi. Ibn al-Arabi, life of Ibn al-Arabi, controversial for some, inspiring for others. We're going to be discussing and trying to get understanding of Ibn Arabi. So that's the lineup for this evening, inshallah ta'ala. If you've got any thoughts on that lineup, do share your thoughts with us. Right, we're going to be going straight into our leading story this evening, right? So we're going to be going straight into the leading story this evening, and that is, of course, with regards to Muslim Pro, right? So Muslim Pro has come under fire after an investigation by online magazine found that the app was among hundreds that were allegedly making money by selling the users' location data to third-party brokers. And in return, that was being then sold on to the US military. Now, Muslim Pro, just for an open disclaimer, did not respond to multiple requests for comments. And last but not least, they have issued, of course, a press release denying that they've been selling personal data of its users to the US military. And they have said categorically that this is incorrect and untrue. All right, so that's the official line. Let's go to some of our experts and find out how normal is this and how widespread is this practice. Is it legal or illegal? And what can you, as an innocent user who goes onto any of these apps, downloads an app thinking that they're providing a free service, only to realize that your data is being sold to the likes of US military? What can you do, right? What can you do about it? So we're going to be speaking to some experts. We've got Jamal Ahmed, who's the CEO of Kasian Privacy Experts. And we've also got Professor Raj, right? Professor Raj, who is the director of the Institute of University of London. So let's go to Professor Raj. Professor Raj, thank you very much for joining us on Friday Night Live. Welcome to Inspire FM.
Thank you.
Excellent. Right, so you've just heard that introduction, and let me start with an opening question for you, Professor Raj. I mean, what's new, right? This is just common, and this is exactly what you would expect from platforms like that on social media, because that's what they're after. Accumulate the users, accumulate that data, and data is money.
Yeah, obviously it's a chicken and egg situation. We all want to use the web. So as I say to my students, if you don't trust the web, don't plug your computer in, don't go to Google, don't go to Facebook, don't go to Twitter, and don't go to Snapchat. So the challenge is the minute you plug your laptop into the network, it starts scanning everywhere, trying to share your data. And as you rightly said, data is money. So everybody wants to make money. And the only way to make money today is to use personal data. And obviously, we are tempted by the services, but the data has monetary value. So there is a challenge here, and there is a friction. But I think it's, as a users, we are giving way to the big companies to misuse the data that they collect from us, because most of the time we click the contents.
All right, so let's come on to that. Let me also introduce Jamal Ahmed. Jamal Ahmed, CEO from Kasian Privacy Experts. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Fantastic, because I can't see you, so I was hoping that you can hear me. All right, Jamal, welcome to Friday Night Live. Opening question for yourself is: you've just heard the comments, and you're probably familiar with this story. You've heard Professor Raj's response to that. Is this illegal for third-party providers to use your data and sell your data on to interested third parties?
All right, so I'm gonna give you the answer in the context of what's happened with the Muslim Pro, because the question you've asked me will depend on the circumstances. So let's look at the circumstances of what's happened here, and we can answer that question subjectively based on the evidence that we see in front of us. So number one, the fact is, Muslim Pro is an app that is based in Singapore, so they have to follow the data protection laws of Singapore. Now, Singapore, the Muslim app have decided they're going to offer their goods and services to European residents.
Yeah.
Any company anywhere in the world that offers goods or services to European residents must comply with the General Data Protection Regulations, the GDPR, which came into force in May 2018. The fact is, Muslim Pro is not compliant with the GDPR. They've made no attempt to be compliant with the GDPR. And we know this because we can see from the privacy policy, it doesn't meet the requirements of the GDPR. They haven't appointed an EU representative as they're required to. So they're already in violation of GDPR on those basic things. The next thing we know is that they've sold data to a third party without doing their due diligence. They haven't spoken to this third party and say, what are you going to do with this data of 98 million Muslims that we're going to give you? They didn't put in place a contract with this party to say the data that we share with you, you can only use it for the purposes of supporting us in our business process as an app. And what they've done is they've given that data away to this third party, who has then gone and sold it onto the US Army, who have said that they've used it as part of the counterinsurgency, and it's potentially being used to launch drone strikes and kill Muslims.
Right. So the answer to the question is that it is illegal then, therefore, for this particular software provider, based on the fact that they're not compliant with GDPR regulations. Right.
Yes, they're in the violation. They're in violation of the GDPR, and they were definitely in violation of the GDPR when this incident came to light.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. I mean, there's a reminder from my producers to announce that we don't know the facts. Okay. But the facts as they stand are the fact that Muslim Pro have not responded to multiple requests for comment. They have issued a press release, which they've said that it's incorrect and untrue. But at the same time, part of their statement, all right, part of their
Okay, so let me address their statement. Let me address their statement. So the statement is also misleading.
It is. I was about to
because
highlight
in
that.
the statement they say, in the statement they say we have not sold any data to the U.S. Army, and it's correct. You haven't directly sold that, but you have allowed for that to happen. You are responsible. You collected this data. The amana of the ummah rested in your hands, and you violated the amana. Take responsibility and don't treat us like muppets.
Yeah, no. I agree. Here it says in a statement, they also say that we have decided to terminate our relationship with all data partners, including Xmode, and Xmode is exactly the firm that's actually gone and sold on the data to the US military. But anyway, let me come back to Professor Raj and come back to the technical issues around here. So this is very common. Data we know is worth a lot of money, and especially when you're talking about 98 million users who have downloaded an app. I mean, that is worth a hell of a lot of money. But a lot of innocent people out. I mean, Professor Raj, perhaps not people quite like me, but a lot of innocent, just the average person downloads an app and is very naive with regards to technology, how this technology is being used, how that data is being used. Obviously, they become a bit more familiar when stories like this break out. What are some of the practical ways that the end users there of these kind of apps can actually protect themselves, Professor Raj?
I think there are efforts now in terms of the consent, right to be forgotten, and the consent has come in, which some of the apps normally ask the users. I still think that unless the system is automated and detects the data and stops the user from downloading it, someone is going to download the app and the user is going to consent to it, because many of these consents, unless you allow the consent, it doesn't allow you to use the app. So this is the biggest challenge in all of us. We are kind of in an urge to use an app, and we download and we agree to many of the terms and conditions without reading the small prints. And this is the challenge I see. So I think the human is the end of the day is the problem here. So.
All right, so I mean, there you go, Jawad. I mean, I think that's a very clear position, Jamal. Sorry, that's a very clear position. I mean, when you're downloading an app, you're agreeing to the terms. So you're agreeing to the fact that these providers, hey, giving you some free software to use, and in return, they've got then access to your data. And then, of course, any organization, any company is going to try to make some money. So surely it's within their right to then sell that data. Now, if a third party or a fourth party is going to go down the line, of that supply chain and sell that data onto the US military, as an app, I mean, they're not directly responsible for that. You can't hold them responsible for that, can you? Surely.
Let's take an example here. So let's say there's me and you, and I say to you, here is my vase, my valuable vase. Can you hold on to it for me, please? You say, okay, I'll hold on to it. Then your friend comes to your house. You give the vase to your friend. Your friend smashes it against the wall, tramples on it. I come back to you and I say, hey, where's my vase? And you say to me, well, I'm not responsible. My friend came and smashed it.
Yeah,
is that acceptable?
But I think, with all due respect, I think we're comparing an egg with a banana almost, because I mean, here your vase.
No, we're not, because the person that collects the data is responsible. They must take responsibility.
Isn't it the case that when you're downloading an app, you're agreeing to their terms and conditions? So firstly, you're agreeing to using your data, and secondly, you're getting a free app and a free service, services as a result of the app, and in return you're selling data, and they can then use your data to make some money out of it. I'm surely they're not there as a philanthropist organization.
I think that's absolutely right.
This is what the problem is.
Let's bring in Professor Raj here. Professor Raj.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is, for example, you download a game, and we see a large number of games which are free has got all malicious malware attached to them. But obviously, we still download it because it's a free game. And that's the game. Because if you don't get anything, nothing is free in this world. We somehow pay for it. And this is what is the hidden money that we are paying for to use the service or the app. So I think it's very hard to argue that they are not going to use this data, because we know, and I think more and more society is aware, that all these free apps do collect data and they share, but we still go on to use them because we do want to use these apps or services which are free.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's
But
move.
this is where the principle of transparency comes in. Yes, they
Yeah.
are collecting data, and if you look at compliant companies, they will tell you we're using data for this purpose. But the compliance principles of GDPR say data minimization. If you collect data for one purpose, you can't then go and use it for another purpose unless you have informed consent. And for consent to be valid, it has to be a free choice. Professor pointed out quite rightly that some of these apps, they won't even function unless you give them that consent. So if they're forcing you to agree before you can use the app, that consent is not valid, and therefore it's not compliant with European data protection laws, which recognizes privacy as a basic human right. What we're talking about is rogue apps that are acting illegally, and it's time that we made a stand and stopped using these apps and stopped giving our data away so cheaply.
Very good. Okay, so Jamal, let me ask you a question. It's in non-compliance of the GDPR rules. Okay, how do we then, or how does someone go about trying to account this particular firm for selling on that data within the European Union, where it's of course in clear violation?
So depending on which country you live in, you can go to your supervisory authority and make a complaint. So in the UK, that would be the Information Commissioner's Office, also known as the ICO. Every UK resident has the right to go to them and say, we want to make a complaint about the way they violated our data privacy, how they violated our rights. And of course, they can also go to the courts and potentially put in place a group litigation order.
Right. So surely this is the step one then in the right direction, which is that I know a lot of people have been really personally affected. I've actually, taken this news down very well, down very badly. I mean, surely it shakes your confidence in so-called these apps that are, providing even a religious service, right? And then going on and using your data. So the step to take is actually go and then raise complaints with those supervisory authorities, so that practical steps can actually be taken. All right, let's move on. I want to go back to Professor Raj. Let me go back to Professor Raj, and let's discuss a bit more with regards to I mean, this is a Pandora's box, isn't it? I mean, when it comes to data security, when it comes to privacy, because we're living in a world which is now almost being run on data. It's all about data. It's all about big data, and the fact that the world's become a global village is a very old term now. In reality, it's even shorter than that. Very dangerous world. We're all intertwined, voluntarily or not voluntarily. What are some of the practical, recommendations that you would give to the average listener how to stay safe, right? When it comes to technology, when it comes to third-party apps, when it comes to getting in, starting sharing your personal data out there on those social media platforms. Professor Raj.
I think my stand on it is don't download anything that's free online, because when you download for free, it's very difficult to go back and then challenge yourself. And before you consent, you need to identify what is going to be happening to your data. And although the GDPR is there and there is right to be forgotten and consent and revoke and all these existing GDPR, I think that amount of work that each individual has to do is enormous. That as an individual, I will never, although I'm a professor of cybersecurity, I will never go and check each app to see what kind of consent I'm giving in. So I think as a user, you basically have to take simple steps that you don't click on areas where you don't trust the link, you don't download things from untrusted web pages, you go to credible places, and you kind of monitor environments in which you are downloading these sources, so that you are at least taking the basic hygiene of cyber to make sure that you don't go into illegal territory, download malicious software.
I mean, I like your advice, but the fact that you're saying don't download free software, I mean, that's a very difficult one for me, because, that is the appeal, isn't it? I mean, if something is free, it's a free app. I don't have to pay £1, £2, £3 for it. I mean, that's the appeal. So you're almost telling a child not to eat the sweets that are on the table in front of the child. I mean, he's inevitably going to eat those sweets, right?
So my take on it is that nothing that's free. You need to pay for anything.
Let me come in there, gentlemen.
Let's hear Jamal. Jamal.
there is something you can do to mitigate. Yeah, there
Right,
is something you can do to mitigate against some of those. And you might have
right.
heard of something called a VPN. A VPN is a virtual private network, and
Yeah,
it creates a secure tunnel where no one can actually see how you're using your device, how you're using your data. So if you
right.
have a VPN, you can download that onto your devices, you can download that onto your smartphones, and then your data is going to be more protected and more preserved.
Right. So I have to download a VPN on my iPhone or Android or whatever phone I've got. Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, there is a new
That is
company now.
one option to keep your data safe. That's right.
Right.
Go,
Okay.
Go now allows you to see whether how do you rate your web page, whether they are tracking you, whether delete the cookies while you. So there are browsers now you can use where
Right.
your browsing history will be deleted after a very specific period. It doesn't show the
Right.
history or keep the cookies. But the main challenge is some of these browsers are very slow. And VPN, not everybody is going to log into VPN to browse through web pages, and that's the problem.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, just give me a minute. I'm going to try to reach out to my listeners out there because I'm sure a lot of my listeners have heard of this story of what's actually happened. Muslim prayer app, right? Over 98 million downloads, right? Apparently, allegedly, according to these reports, that data has been sold on to third parties, and those third parties have sold on that data to the US military. Now, in a dummy's guide, you download the app, right? All of that location data is gathered together from all of the people that are downloading it. That's been sold on to a company, and that company gets that data, obviously specializes in location data, and then obviously very interested parties like the US military, other secret services might come along and say, you know what, we're interested in buying that hundreds of millions of terabytes or whatever it is of location data, and then it can use that for whatever purpose that it serves, right? So that's what we're talking about, right? If you've got a view, if you've heard the story, if you're slightly disconcerted, disturbed, have got a view, 01582 481 822 0779 481 822, right? So I was trying to play that background music. I don't know why I didn't play it. But anyway, let me put that down. All right, gentlemen, I've got about 3 minutes to go. Very, very quickly. Retrospectively, can something be done about all of our data that is out there, or some of these apps that we've downloaded, apart from just deleting those apps, or is it just simply too late, Professor Raj?
I think at the moment it's too late. We have already given enough data out to the world, and I myself all the time trace to see how many of my passwords have been used. Even this morning, I found 4 of my previous passwords have been regularly used. So there is no way that I continue to. The only advice I would give is just continue to change your passwords and have multiple passwords for different places and have multiple email addresses, and don't use the same password and emails across in all platforms and all apps. That's the
I'm
only way you can protect yourself.
Yeah, it's almost it's a nightmare. Passwords are a nightmare, Professor Raj. I mean, it's almost like when I start coming back to my own house, I'm gonna need a password. I need a password to to access everything. I mean, it just becomes insane. It's almost not humanly possible. Jamal, what is your advice in terms of safe usage of apps, safe usage of social media? What's your advice to our listeners?
So my advice is when it comes to data, certain data you can afford to be a little bit complacent with. So for example, if you have an email address or a password or a social media account, you can always change those and reset passwords. When it comes
Yeah,
to biometric information like your fingerprint, your iris, your facial recognition, if that
yeah,
gets into the wrong hand, it's not so easy to go and change your fingerprint, to go and change your iris, to change your facial structure. So you need to be
yeah.
very careful about which kind of apps you're giving what kind of information away to, and understand, is this worth it for a little bit of silliness? And there's loads of apps that are trying to collect this information for foreign apps, because remember, the next war is going to be a data war, where
Mm.
they're actually purporting to have apps like you can play games, or there's hidden torches where actually they're collecting data for purposes to be used against you in the future. So I'd be very careful what data I'm handing out. And the way I think about it on social media, if I was standing in Oxford Circus on a busy Friday, and I had information about me on a piece of paper that I was giving out to every single person that passed by, I would only put out on social media what I'm comfortable to put out onto those pieces of paper to those passers-by that grab it and move away, and I have no control over it thereafter. Because once you put it out on social media, you lose complete control of it.
Okay, Professor Raj and Jamal Ahmed, thank you very much for your time this evening. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, listeners, that was Jamal Ahmed, Professor Raj, and we were discussing data security, privacy, and we were discussing the story that broke this week with regards to Muslim Pro. I was reminded by the production team, allegedly. We do agree that it's allegedly, because of course the Muslim Pro app company have denied and said this is incorrect and untrue. But again, happy to hear your thoughts. 01582 481 822 0779 481 822. We're going to go into a commercial break. When we come back, we will continue the show. Don't go away. Until then, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Wahaj, and keep tuning to Inspire FM on 105.1 FM.
This is an important update about coronavirus. To help save lives, new national restrictions are now in place until the 2nd of December. You must stay at home. Only leave home for food, medical reasons, exercise, education, or work. You must work from home if you can, and avoid travel unless essential. Go to gov.uk/coronavirus for latest guidance and exemptions. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Whatever your event, your perfect venue is Grand Park Hall on Park Street in Luton. Catering for up to 700 people, surrounded by 300 car park spaces, Grand Park Hall has everything to make your conference, corporate event, akika, birthday party, mendi, engagement, wedding, or other celebration a first-class success. Grand Park Hall's catering team offer HMC certified food, and the events team can take care of everything: car hire, wedding planning, entertainment, and organising segregated weddings too. For details, click on grandparkhall.co.uk or call Boktir Hussain on Luton 484109.
Oakwood Primary School, Tennyson Road, Luton, is a DFE-registered independent Islamic faith-based school for 3 to 11-year-olds, with approximately 140 children, both nursery and primary. We're now recruiting children across the whole primary and nursery classes. If you wish to send your children to a progressive Islamic school with a strong focus on raising attainment and promoting excellence and enjoyment, contact the school on Luton 518800 and ask for an application form, or email admin@oakwoodprimary.co.uk.
अटेंशन फॉर लैंडलॉर्ड्स, क्या आप चाहते हैं कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी जल्द से जल्द किराए पर लग जाए और आपकी प्रॉपर्टी की 100% देखभाल के साथ साथ किराया भी पर वक्त मिले? तो मैरीगोल्ड रेजिडेंशियल से राब्ता कीजिए। मैरीगोल्ड रेजिडेंशियल अब प्रॉपर्टी की खरीदो फरोख्त का काम भी करते हैं। अगर आप अपनी प्रॉपर्टी रेंट पर खरीदना या बेचना चाहते हैं तो आज ही फोन कीजिए 01582 617 617 251 Dunstable Road, Luton. Terms and conditions apply.
AK Windows South Limited, manufacturers and installers of high-quality UPVC windows and doors, bifold doors, composite doors, conservatories, porches, skypods, fascias, guttering, and much, much more. We specialize in double glazing and triple glazing using the best German profile. If you want quality at affordable prices, AK Windows is the place to go. If your house needs a facelift, you know who to trust. For a free quote, call AK Windows today on 01582 483 777 or visit us at Unit 10E, Britannia Estate, Leagrave Road, Luton.
TheStudyCentre.co.uk is Luton's newest tuition centre and flexi school, providing hundreds of structured courses from Key Stage 1 to GCSEs. Subjects include English, Maths, Science, Islamic Arts, Quran, Arabic, Islamic Studies, plus many more. Classes are taught in person or online, daytime or evenings, weekdays and weekends from as little as £6 an hour. Register now at thestudycentre.co.uk and let's get learning.
When you seek the dunya, you lose the hereafter. When you seek the hereafter, you gain both. Which is the wiser transaction?
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Shaban, on this Friday, the 20th of November 2020. And it's a very cold evening, but I think we've just got really warmed up after that first half an hour of the show. Great conversation with regards to data security and privacy, okay? And privacy or privacy, however you want to pronounce it. Jamal Ahmed and Professor Raj, in very, very interesting conversation. Muslim Pro made headlines this week. If you've heard the story, I want to hear your thoughts, please. 07779481822. Right? I'm going to tell you, it's made me very, very uncomfortable. Right? So I want to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts with regards to that story? But of course, we're going to move on, and we've got two stories that we need to cover in the next half an hour. So I need to stop talking and move on to the next stories, because I think our guests have already joined. So I need to go straight to them, right? We're going to be starting with a conversation, a discussion around Pakistan. So Pakistan's been apparently been put under pressure to recognize Israel, right? To recognize Israel, but the Palestinian president praised Imran Khan over its refusal to recognize Israel. Now, let me ask you this question, right? Let me ask you this question. For how long can Imran Khan hold his ground and refuse to recognize Israel, especially when the Gulf nations are putting that pressure apparently on Imran Khan, right? So that's going to be the question I'm going to be asking my guest tonight. I've got Mr. Yasser Janjua, is it?
Yes, Yasser Janjua.
Mr. Yasser, thank you very much for joining us, Senior Defense and Security Analyst. And then we've got Ismail Patel, Chairman of Friends of Al-Aqsa. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ismail.
Wa alaikum salam, and assalamu alaikum to all your listeners as well.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to go straight to Mr. Yasser Janjua, right? All right, so Imran Khan is apparently under a lot of pressure. I'm hearing, right? How long is he going to be able to bear this pressure from refusing to accept and recognize Israel in your thoughts?
Look, every country has its own ideological frontiers.
Yeah.
Pakistan is a sovereign state, and Pakistan does not take dictations from any friends, if that is the impression that is going around the world. Right. And the least of all, Mr. Imran Khan. He's one prime minister who doesn't take dictation from anybody, especially outside. No way. So no matter what amount of pressure, government of Pakistan, the foreign ministry and the prime minister has very categorically told the world, internally as well, everybody, look, Pakistan will not recognize Israel until the Palestinian issue is resolved. So no matter how amount of pressure it is, no matter how amount of oil deals they offer, Imran Khan is not going to budge on his stance.
I mean, Mr. Yasser, I think I might respectfully kind of disagree with that. I mean, Imran Khan's already revealed that he's growing pressure from friendly countries. He's in a dire need when it comes to the economy, right? Okay, he has reiterated that Pakistan's position will not change without a fair settlement for the Palestinians. I mean, what does a fair settlement for the Palestinians mean? I mean, let me bring it on record. I mean, Pakistan's even position with a lot of people are arguing that Pakistan's position with regards to even Kashmir has really been watered down over the years because of the political pressure. I mean, it's not the same as it used to be, 10 years ago. Surely you're going to agree to that.
No, I'm not going to agree to you, and I can give you tangible evidences. For the first time in a very, very long time, last year, when the Prime Minister Imran Khan went on to the United Nations podium, he spoke about Kashmir like nobody else. And you see, the result of that was there was not only Imran Khan talking about it, there was the Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, and there was the Malaysian Prime Minister who spoke in front of the whole audience in favor of the Kashmiri cause. So after 5th of August 2019, the way the government of Pakistan and the Prime Minister has raised the Kashmir issue it has been internationalized like never before. So I beg to, obviously it's democracy and you have a right to disagree, but I think, and I am very confident that the way government of Pakistan, the present government, is promoting the Kashmir cause has not been done in the past. Now the world is waking up to the reality. So it's the same case. If you let me just 1 second go back to the Palestinian thing. Look, you were right in saying that there's growing pressure on Imran Khan to recognize Israel. And this was the same case in the times of President Musharraf. But we did not do so. President Musharraf was a dictator. It was easy for him to do so, but it's not. The ideological frontiers, Imran Khan cannot do that. There are stakeholders in the country.
Yasser, let me ask you a question. Is it the case that the public opinion will not allow that at this stage? Because the problem at the moment is that whilst apparently I'm reading that the army wants open relations with Israel, their grassroots are shouting betrayal, and Imran would be collateral damage. So the issue here is that when, and I'm going to go to Brother Ismail in a minute, when you see all of these Gulf nations slowly recognizing Israel, it'll make it all the easier for Imran Khan to come out and then eventually accept it, because everyone else is accepting it. And especially if you put the right financial package on the table and you put the right kind of, other incentives on the table, it's not going to take long, is it?
You talk to Brother Ismail and then I'll answer, because I don't want to take away his time. So I'm going to come back to it afterwards.
Fantastic. I really appreciate that. Very honorable of you. Okay, Brother Ismail Patel, very you're holding on and listening very patiently, right? You see what's happening, and it's very, very dismaying to see, Bahrain and UAE and now Saudi putting pressure on Pakistan. What do you make of this fast move towards recognition and normalization with Israel?
Well, I think really it's a sign of weakness rather than strength. The reason I put that way is because Israel needs legitimacy for its criminality. If it was a normal state, it would not require normalization. The very idea that it is seeking normalization means it wants to whitewash its filth in the public. Those countries who are doing it as well are providing legitimacy to Israel, but they're undermining their own status, especially the Gulf states. I think the grassroots support still on the street is for the sympathy for the Palestinians, for justice and peace. And therefore, I think the leadership is looking for trouble for themselves. As for Pakistan, I think we have to consider what Imran Khan has done so far is very commendable and very courageous, because I understand that the international pressures that must be put upon him are very immense, and we shouldn't undermine that. And while we hope and think that he holds that position, we should always be able to support him that he holds that position and not undermine him. Because America is a superpower, Europe, and now Saudi Arabia openly. There's an article today in the Israeli newspaper that it is bin Salman who's pressurizing Imran Khan to change his mind. So there's pressure for him on all sides. So it's not going to be easy for him or for any state. And therefore, he needs encouragement, and we shouldn't take what is today to be the case in 6 months' time from today. And it is an open arena. But as far as the present condition and status is concerned, I think it's very commendable for Imran Khan to stand up to the world pressure that he's under.
Indeed, I mean, let's give Imran Khan some credit. I'm getting a lot of fire from my social media messages that are coming through, or I'm not giving any credibility to Imran Khan. So let me play at the other side of it. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, I mean, he praised Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan and his country's consistent supportive stance with regards to the Palestinian cause and refusal to recognize Israel. There you go. I've made it official, and we're acknowledging that some of that positive work that's happening. But of course, I mean, I'm a bit of a politician, and there are a lot of analysts out there. I've got an analyst name here, Noor Dahri, founder and executive director of Islamic Theology of Counterterrorism, a UK-based think tank, who suggests that both states, Israel and Pakistan, have had intelligence and military relations for decades. Yasser Sab.
No way, Jose. This is all fake news.
I mean, you're a former military man, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud of I'm not only a military man, my generations after generations have served in the army. I don't want to start name calling, but my uncle was the army chief.
Yes.
And I've been proudly associated to him, and I was in his regiment, not because of my military background, but as a Pakistani as well.
Yeah.
Look, you were talking about recognizing Israel and the Saudi pressure to recognize Israel. I'll go back and give you some real life examples.
Yeah.
Look, there was a lot of pressure on Pakistan to send troops into Saudi Arabia in the war against Yemen. Pakistani army and the government, although Imran Khan was still not in the government, but Pakistani army did not send the troops into Yemen because we clearly have a stance as a government, not as the army, although army is a stakeholder, but as a government, the policy is we will not send troops against friendly nations or against Muslim nations. Similarly, in the case of Iraq, in the 2003 Gulf War, Pakistani army was asked again to send the troops to Gulf. We did not send the troops because we did not believe that we wanted to send our troops to fight against the Iraqis. We said we will take care of the holy places, the holy sites in the Saudi Arabia, and we will be the custodian of the holy sites as we have been in the past, but we will not be part of the Iraq war.
Right.
Now, coming back to the Israel-Palestinian issue, even if there is mounting pressure from Saudi Arabia, you must remember we are located in such a place, geographically, we are located on such a point. We have next door neighbor as Iran, and Iran-Israel relations will never be good. So we've always tried to maintain that fine balance of relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia. We want to keep relations with Iran. We want to keep relations with Saudi Arabia. So we don't want to annoy one of the two. The fact remains, Israeli issue, it's just not as simple as saying Saudi Arabia just because they gave us the oil and we are going to accept them. No, sir.
Yasser Saab, what about okay, I hear you very clearly. What is the feel, right, within the military when it comes to Israel? I mean, grassroots, I've got no doubt. I agree totally with what Brother Ismail Patel has said. Grassroots, the passion and the emotions of the masses are always for Kashmir, are always for Palestine. But up there within the military, where these finances and these deals matter and these incentives matter, what is the spirit? What is the feel within the military? You're a military man, tell me, from Pakistan.
Right, I tell you what, first you have to understand, and I'm sure you do, that the grassroots, if they are very patriotic, the ones at the top, the generals, my friends are now generals. They are not paratrooped as generals into the army straight away. They go from bottom to top. So when they rise up in the ranks, they are educated and they are trained on nationalism. So it can't be that when they become general officers, all of a sudden, because of the perks and privileges, they'll sell Pakistan. They are more patriotic than anybody can imagine. Otherwise, America has been trying for last 3 or 4 decades to destabilize our nuclear program. And honestly, it's all because of the armed forces that our nuclear program is still safe today. So these generals have never ever let that been sold. Otherwise, this would have gone by now.
Right.
Do you agree with me?
Yeah, no. I like what you're saying, and I want to believe what you're telling me, and we've got it on record, so I'll keep it. I'll come back. We'll come back to you one day, hopefully, on this. But let me also go back to Brother Ismail Patel and find out what Friends of Palestine have been up to, because at the moment it's a bit of a challenging time, is it not, Brother Ismail? I mean, when you're seeing what's happening around you, you've obviously described it as a sign of defeat and actually, capitulation. But I mean, what does that mean now for grassroots, activism for raising awareness and getting the due justice for the Palestinian cause, for the people, Brother Ismail?
Well, it's a double-edged sword, I'm afraid. When things like this happen, then you have greater activism on the ground level. You have more people wanting to do something. So you have more volunteers coming forward, more people wanting to campaign, lobbying, carrying on with their sort of boycott, divestment, and sanctions in Britain in particular. But obviously, the other flip side of that is the establishment. You have the British government, now even the opposition party under Keir Starmer, who are very, very pro-Israel, and they want to fly the flag of Israel. So the work becomes much harder. But as I say, when these things happen, the communities with us, wider community. Here, when I say community, I just don't mean Muslims in Britain. Most of our supporters are non-Muslims. And that is very, very encouraging. And it's what I see, whatever happens is whenever Israel is very aggressive, when the establishments around the world try to recognize Israel and normalize relationships that it's doing, that our circle of concern gets wider and more people are getting concerned about the future of the Palestinian people. So there's a polarity here between the establishment and the civil society, the global civil society. And that is where our hope is invested in, that eventually, hopefully, they'll change. And this is not sort of based on emotions or fantasy. I am old enough to remember fighting for apartheid South Africa. Towards the end of the regime of apartheid South Africa, the whole Western world, including America and Britain, and at that time Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister in Britain, who called Nelson Mandela a terrorist and he would never be allowed to come in Britain. And we were in those days demonstrating against Barclays Bank. And it was a civil society that rose up and changed the dynamics. So I feel we're moving that way. Obviously, there's a parallels. Everything doesn't happen, provided the civil society stays with us and continues the movement. I think we have still got a hope. But I think, again, which way it goes, maybe through the annexation, this normalization, we might be talking about a one-state solution and a single people, which might be better for all of them around there. But that will have to be seen, and we need to wait and see on that.
Okay, on that note, I want to, unfortunately, we've got to move on. So I want to really thank Brother Ismail Patel, Chairman of Friends of Al-Aqsa, and Mr. Yasser Janjuja, Senior Defense and Security Analyst. Fantastic having you. Inshallah, we're going to be inviting you and having a lot more conversations. Great to speak to you this evening, Yasser Sab.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Right, listeners, that was a very interesting conversation around Pakistan and it's the pressure that has been applied on Pakistan to recognize Israel. Two fantastic guests that we had there. Do you share the sentiments of and the thoughts and the opinions of my guests this evening, or do you share my skepticism? Right, so I came in the line of fire on social media, on WhatsApp at least, because I'm not giving enough credibility to Imran Khan, but let's call it out. Yep, Imran Khan, yeah, he's standing his ground. But my question was more, how long is he gonna hold his ground? That was my question. It's not that he's not holding his ground. What is it gonna take what is it gonna take to put on the table, right, for Imran Khan to say, you know what, hey, everyone's recognizing Israel. I just gotta do it. I don't have an alternative, right? That's what I'm saying, man. It's only a matter of time. Anyway, 01582 481822 0779 481822. Share your thoughts. Let me know. Am I right? Am I wrong? Is my skepticism does it have any validity or not? Let me know. Right, we're gonna move on to the next story, inshallah. We're gonna move on to the next story. I believe my guest has joined me for the next story. It is should have been Dr. Salman. Would have been good to see Dr. Salman, but it's also equally good to see Brother Tariq, I understand. Is that correct? Okay, Brother Tariq, can you hear me? Right, I can see Brother Tariq, but he can't hear me, right? So let me go back to the producers, inshallah, if we can try to reconnect with Brother Tariq. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Tariq. Can you hear me? All right. Carry on. All right, we're gonna be discussing. All right, fine. I'll carry on. We're gonna be discussing hopefully in the next couple of minutes with a brother from Islam 21C, inshallah, with regards to a launch of a new campaign. Here we go, Brother Tariq. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Nice to see you, Akhi, man, and welcome to Friday Night Live. Jazakallah for your time this evening. I've just introduced you as Brother Tariq from Islam 21C. I don't know if you're actually from Islam 21C or part of the campaign.
That's right. I'm the communications manager for Islam 21C. So I've had the pleasure of working on this campaign and looking forward to answering any questions and presenting what it's all about tonight, inshallah.
All right, Jazakallah khair. So you've launched this new campaign, In Their Shoes, right? So it's very interestingly titled campaign, because initially it kind of confused me. I wasn't sure what the campaign's about, but I guess at the same time it makes someone curious what's this campaign about, and it makes you probe and try to understand what the campaign's about. So why don't you tell us background to the campaign and what the campaign's all about?
Sure. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, the campaign came about from us having lots of dialogue and conversations with different Islamic institutions. And one thing that was prevalent and kept on coming up over and over again was this worrying and increasing trend of where one parent is denied access to their own children by the other parent. So, that parent who's doing the denying of access is normally they normally become the judge, jury, and executioner in essence. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to raise awareness of this major toxic activity within families, within society, and we're trying to make sure that parents go to essentially some form of accredited Islamic mediation council where the decision can be made in, most importantly, a fair and unbiased way for the children who are the at times victims of this activity. Hence why we called it In Their Shoes, because there's different parties involved, but the end result is that it mostly affects the children, at least in this world. So that's where we came up with the decision that we have to act on this and try to do our best to encourage parents to do their utmost in making a decision that is most pleasing to Allah and also in the best for all the parties.
Okay, so that's interesting. And specifically, you cited in the campaign that this is kind of escalated, or you've seen a rise in numbers of these kind of incidents within the lockdown period.
Yeah, I mean, you will have seen it was actually national headlines where we saw with many families reporting to certain institutions where domestic violence was on the increase, and these were being reported to certain agencies and also the police. And it's these types of activities that then relate back to the families and cause, more amplified scenarios of maybe domestic abuse, the parents and marriages breaking down, and that then has an effect on the child. And then that mediation process that starts normally ends up going towards, let's say, processes that aren't in the favor or aren't designed to be objective or in the best interests of all the parties at hand.
Right. Okay. And with regards to this campaign, what is it that you want? I mean, earlier you cited that you want parents to go to third parties, to mediators, to some of these institutions. I mean, isn't it the fact today that we're seeing a kind of a surge of some similar kind of issues, right? So whether it's divorce, whether it's reconciliation, whether it's disputes, whether it's financial disputes, whether it's issues to do with custody of children, etc., and the institutions that are able to kind of deal with all of these issues are on the lower end, right? So therefore, the demand is greater than the supply, and therefore it's very difficult, isn't it, to be able to actually administer and manage all of these rising kind of demands upon these kind of institutions. So what happens when it takes months to try to get some of these issues addressed, and you need something a lot more quicker, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing to acknowledge is, look, life doesn't always go to plan. Okay, marriages break down, families break up, and Islamically, that's not necessarily a problem. That's a natural part of everyday life. Sometimes families break down, even the companions, the greatest men who ever walked the face of the earth after the prophets. Even these men, they had marriages, they didn't work out, but it was dealt with in an amicable way. The system itself is not designed to facilitate the needs of the families at time. Things are very long-winded. There's a lot of red tape. There's bias in the processes, and that's why this campaign of In Their Shoes, which is a nationwide campaign supported not just by Islam 21C, but being championed by multiple dozens actually of organizations pushing this cause. And if we can equip family members, both the parent who's deciding not to give access to the other parent, both the parent who's the victim of not getting access to the children, to the friends and families, if we can equip the family members to deal with this in a way that doesn't require legal intervention, that it can be dealt with amicably, it can be dealt with by the family members, and we can still allow visitation, rights being fulfilled, children having access to everyone, then to answer your question, we don't need to rely on putting a burden on the services that are out there that are over capacity and can't deal with serving the needs of people, not just on a legal perspective, but also on a spiritual and practical element as well.
We've got about 45 seconds remaining. What do you want to achieve, and what is your message to the community?
So first and foremost, this is as well as a campaign trying to address a toxic practice in the community. What we want to let people know is, firstly, for the parent denying access, we want them to feel, although this is an emotional, sometimes there's emotions involved in this, we want them to firstly know that, look, there's a religious solution to this, and we have to take into consideration the rights of all the family members, specifically the children. To the parents who are being denied access, this is a test from Allah. Okay, don't lose hope. And many of the Anbiya, the greatest men to ever have lived, were tested with this as well. To the children themselves, look, this isn't your fault, okay? Don't let shaitan blame you and make you believe that this is something you've done wrong. It happens, but you can have a healthy, meaningful, fulfilled life yourself. And to all those family around them, we encourage them to remember to follow due process, to don't be a supporter of the bad cause.
We're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. We've run out of time. We're going to go into a commercial break. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, folks, we're going to go into a commercial break until we come back. Assalamu alaikum.
After the break, continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
The Quran mentions Asya as an example to all Muslims. It states in chapter 66, verse 11, and God sets forth as an example to those who believe the wife of Pharaoh. Behold, she said, O my Lord, build for me in nearness to you a mansion in the garden, and save me from Pharaoh and his doings, and save me from those that do wrong.
As winter approaches, here's a critical reminder of coronavirus symptoms from Dr. Gupta.
The main symptoms of coronavirus are a high temperature or a new continuous cough, or a sudden loss or change in your sense of smell or taste. If you have any of these, to protect yourself and others, it is critical you isolate at home, even if you don't feel too bad. And you must book a test immediately. Use the NHS COVID-19 app or go to gov.uk/coronavirus.
Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
हसन केटरिंग, शादी हो या सालगिरह या फिर किसी भी किस्म के फंक्शन के लिए हमारी बेहतरीन सर्विस और शानदार मेन्यू से फायदा उठाएं। हमारे माहिर कुक उम्दा खाना बेहतरीन मसाला जात से तैयार करते हैं। हमारी फखरिया पेशकश चिल्टन होटल हाया करने पर स्पेशल डिस्काउंट हासिल करें। अब जदीद तकाज़ों के साथ बेहतरीन हॉल, उम्दा सजावट, आला सर्विस। मज़ीद मालूमात के लिए आज ही कॉल कीजिए 01582 706666 or visit hasancatering.co.uk.
आइडियल प्रॉपर्टीज 20 साल से आपकी खिदमत में पेश आपकी प्रॉपर्टी की सारी जिम्मेदारी अब हमारी। हम अच्छी तरह से जांच पड़ताल करके किराएदार डालते हैं और आपको किराया बर वक्त गारंटी के साथ दिलवाते हैं। अगर आप प्रॉपर्टी किराए पर लेने या फरोख्त करने का सोच रहे हैं तो आज ही हमारे तजुर्बाकार माहिरीन से राब्ता कीजिए 01582 721110 या फिर 01582 696050। आइडियल प्रॉपर्टीज, आपकी मदद हमारा एन फरीजा।
Do you want an Islamic education alongside national curriculum for your child? Al Hikmah School for Boys and Girls are your #1 choice. Last year, we had the highest attainment 8 score in Luton, and the GCSE pass rate in Maths and English was 94%. We teach a full range of subjects, where you can gain up to 10 GCSEs. The school is now registered with the prestigious private school body ISA and uses state-of-the-art facilities, including indoor playing area, playing field, brand new science lab, and IT facilities. Call now to apply for your child on 01582 728 196.
We're facing the biggest health challenge of our generation, and we've shown that together we're stronger than ever. But to keep making a difference, we need to support each other. If you're a man and you've had coronavirus recently, then you might just have the antibodies to help save lives in your blood plasma. That's why we need men to donate. Giving blood plasma is safe, easy, and during this lockdown is considered essential travel. Be the difference. Search Donate Plasma or call 0300 123 2323 today. Shukriya.
Morning light through the bedroom window, slow motion dust specks swirling in the sun.
This is singer-songwriter Dawood Warnsby. Join us on Inspire FM every weekday from Monday to Friday for the Rise and Shine Show with Brother Tariq here on 105.1 FM.
The way you warm mine and make this room glow. Dust where you brushed from the beard. From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7 o'clock.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Friday Night Live. It is Friday the 20th of November and I am your host Hafiz Shaban on this very cold evening. It has just turned 7 p.m. First hour of the show is already gone. Thank you very much for all of you that are contributing and getting involved in tonight's conversation. We are, of course, broadcasting live from Luton, Inspire FM 105.1 FM, and also broadcasting live across our partner stations nationally. We are also across all of the social media platforms. So do please tune in, get involved, leave your comments, your thoughts, your opinions, your likes, your dislikes. Happy to even hear your criticisms, right? So do please remember to like us, like tonight's show on Facebook, leave us your comments, 01582 481 822, and social media messages 07794818822. We are going to be continuing with this evening show. We're going to be moving swiftly on. As I said, subhanAllah, the production team this evening and this week have been very, very busy. They've lined up so many stories and so many guests. Fantastic. Makes good show. So let's press ahead, inshallah. We're going to be moving on to our next story, and we're going to be speaking to our colleagues and our brothers at Cage, right? So we're going to be discussing 20 years of the Terrorism Act. Wow, you know what? That's absolutely incredible. 20 years have already gone by, right? So Cage have issued a new report. I believe it's a new report because that's what caught my attention. The latest report, 20 years of tax justice under threat. Okay, provides an analysis of the use and impact of 2 decades of the Terrorism Act, which passed into law on 20th of July 2000. Okay, we've got Brother Kerry with us. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Kerry.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing?
Yeah, wa alaikum assalam, akhi. Good to hear from you. Alhamdulillah, not too bad. Jazakallah for joining us once again on Friday Night Live. Can you hear me clearly?
Oh, the line's a little bit bad, but yeah. Hello, yeah, the line went a bit bad there. Jazakallah khair for having me on. How are you doing?
Yeah, you're welcome, bro. You're welcome. Right, 20 years of tax, new report, Brother Kerry. Tell us about it.
Yeah, subhanallah. It's absolutely, as you said, it's crazy to think that we've been going through this criminalization of our entire community now for 20 years. And a lot of people think about the start of the war on terror being with 9/11 and 2001.
Yeah.
But we can see from this legislation that this even started in 2000. Before all of this, they were already had this path that they wanted to go down and that they'd laid out the legal framework to do. And now, chip, every year, new legislation, and the rights of ordinary people have been eroded in a really serious way over these 20 years.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll delve into the report in a few moments, right? But I mean, I'm just reading from the website. The report calls for the abolition of counterterrorism legislation, outlines 3 basic steps towards a society based on trust and the elimination of mass surveillance and securitization. And I'm just thinking that's a very ambitious statement, isn't it?
It is ambitious, but I feel as a community, we have to be strong and brave in our stance and understand that it's not too much to ask to be treated like everybody else in society. It's not too much to ask it's not too arrogant or uppity to, let's face it, demand that we have the same rights and the same treatment as our next door neighbours, as any other person in Britain.
Yeah, but you know, for some reason, I don't know if I'm just being very pessimistic this evening on the show, right? For all of my stories, right? But going back to a world of eliminating mass surveillance and securitization, I just don't see it, right? Especially, I mean, let's talk about the last few weeks and months, right? We've got a whole host of new legislation that's going through the Houses of Parliament, right? On the back end of all of this COVID, all sorts of new legislation. You know, we had Mozambique a few weeks ago, and we were discussing that, right? So it's only heading towards more securitization, more surveillance. I mean, we just were discussing a Muslim Pro app earlier. 98 million users' data apparently being sold on to third parties and ending up with the US military data location service.
Look, the issues of securitization and the living in, well, as we warned, first affected the Muslims, the reality is that it spreads out into all of society and it affects everybody. What comes for the Muslims first comes for society later. So you're right. This is a big problem and a big issue that needs to be dealt with on many layers. But it's important, and especially from Cage's perspective, with these reports that we write, that we speak truth to power, and that we're at the vanguard, we're at the forefront of making those calls. And a few years ago, it would have seemed unreasonable and impossible that you would have a movement in America calling for justice for Black people in the way that they have. But it's caught the zeitgeist, and now that movement's become mainstream. And we need to have the same expectations. And to be honest, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we're not accountable for whether people listen, only whether we're brave enough to make the call.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds good. It sounds good, Brother Kerry, right? So let me ask you, right? Okay, precisely. I mean, you know, very detailed report, very lengthy report. You know, where does this report go to? I mean, okay, it goes to opinion makers, it goes to other academics, it goes to other thinkers, it goes to other, advocates for similar kind of values and principles. You know, what is the momentum that behind the scenes, around building an opinion against this, this trend of securitization that we're seeing? What is the kind of momentum that we're seeing? Perhaps I'm not seeing, but you're privy to.
I'm sorry, bro. I lost the whole last part of that comment that you were making. Your line's very shaky to me.
Oh, okay, awesome. Let me try to re-articulate that. Right. So my point was a fantastic report, quite lengthy, a lot of detail. Where does it go? How is that momentum, building up with regards to building an opinion with the other academics, other writers, other activists, around building a momentum against this securitization, mass surveillance, etc., that we're seeing?
Okay, at the moment I'm just getting Dalek voice from you, but I heard what you said about who does it go to, academics and things like this. I think one of the important things is I'm going to try and make a point, and hopefully it's semi in line with where you were going. One of the important things about this is that we reach out to all different parts of society. So as Cage, we work with academics, both Muslim and non-Muslim. We work with other think tanks and organizations and try and frame the debate around counterterrorism. And even recently, I've been very happy to see Cage working more with artists as well, poets and musicians and comedians. And this is part of the way that we have to be there, as I said, at the forefront, trying to shape the debate around these sorts of things by working in lots of different forums and spaces. That includes the entertainment, working with entertainers and people who set opinion, working with academics who back these things up, and furthermore, trying to shape policy where and when we can.
All right, fantastic. And at grassroots levels, I mean,
I can hear you. Mashallah, I can hear you.
You can hear me now, yeah?
Beautifully. Your lovely voice, inshallah.
So at grassroots levels, right? I mean, this report is very detailed. At grassroots level, what are you telling the community and asking the community? You know, what are you trying to empower the community with?
So the main thing for the community, and with Cage, we've always been a grassroots organization. So the main thing for the community is the fact that we're armed with knowledge. We're armed with knowing the fact that of all of the people that are arrested, 75% are released without charge. Only 10% are even ever convicted. If you look at the statistics, right-wing and far-right terrorism or political violence makes up the vast majority of crimes, both in America and in Europe and in the UK. Yet 70% of the people in prison for political violence are Muslim. There's a huge disproportionality that's going on here. And our community needs to be aware of that. But it's not enough to have the facts and to be aware. Our community needs to know that we can stand up and be brave and take a stance and say, we deserve the same treatment as everyone else. And we're not second-class citizens. We're not people that you can kick around under your boot. The vast majority of the Muslim community now, or not the vast majority, but a majority of the Muslim community now were born and brought up here. We've got British passports. We're exactly the same as everybody else, and we don't deserve any secondary citizenship for the fact that we say La ilaha illallah and we believe in the greatest of mankind, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Okay, and last but not least, Brother Kerry, and then I'll let you go, inshallah ta'ala, because I also need to move on. I mean, these kind of reports, are they ever shared with government? Is there any interaction with government? Is there any response from the government? Is there any interest from the government to have a legitimate and a genuine conversation?
So we have spoken at, and we often make submissions to the government committees. We've spoken at government committees, but the fact of the matter is, on a large part, especially within the Tory government in particular, Cage are persona non grata. The Tories, they don't like Muslims at the best of times, but especially Muslims who advocate for a proactive, engaged, strong Muslim community is not one of their on their favorites list. But we have very strong ties with the Labour Party and senior people within the Labour Party that we've worked with for many years.
Right. All right. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Brother Kerry, for your time this evening and sharing your views and your thoughts on at least giving us an overview of the 20 years of Takmir report by Cage. Thank you very much, Brother Kerry.
Thank you very much for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Okay, that was Brother Kerry from Cage giving us an overview of the new report that has been issued by Cage, 20 years of the Terrorism Act, which was, of course, passed into law in July 2000. So very, very interesting points there about, the elimination of mass surveillance, securitization, society based on trust. Wow. I mean, that seems like, decades and if not centuries ago, where we had a society based on trust. Everything is Big Brother, mass surveillance, and securitization at the moment. And it seems like we're getting more of that. But I think the message there from Brother Kerry was, don't give up, right? And don't take that attitude. We're not second-class citizens, and we need to fight for our rights. Fight for our rights, we need to speak up. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the next story. As I said, plenty of stories to cover. And I'm going to be speaking to, okay, I think I've forgotten the name. Let me go back to my notes. I don't have it. All right, so let me go to the sheet. All right, we're going to be speaking to a sister from Mend, but I've lost the name. Right, oh, here we go. We're going to be speaking to, is it Sahar Al-Faifi?
Yes, correct. Sahar Al-Faifi is with you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Okay, so I finally found your name. Jazakallah khair for for joining us on Friday Night Live. Community organizer, human rights activist is the introduction that I've been given about yourself, Sister Sahar. So you are, of course, all speaking on behalf of MEND, if I've got that correct.
No, this is incorrect. I'm not speaking on behalf of men today.
Okay.
My personal capacity as a human rights activist.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, in your in your capacity as a human rights activist. Okay, so I understand that, of course, this is all about Islamophobia, and this is it's a month, isn't it, on raising awareness about Islamophobia. Tell us what's been happening, Sister Sahar.
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on Inspire Luton. It's always a great pleasure to be on your show every year. And indeed, November is Islamophobia Awareness Month. A lot of us know about October to be Black History Month, March to be the anti-racism, International Anti-Racism Day. But not many people know that November is Islamophobia Awareness Month, where organizations across the board raise awareness about Islamophobia, which a lot of the people think it's just the overt verbal or physical abuse in the street. And the truth is, as Brother Carrie said from Cage before me, that Islamophobia is far more sophisticated. It's institutional, and it can be manifested in its securitization form. And the issue, brother, that, as you also said, that we as Muslims, we need to fight for our rights, but not only that, we need to lead that fight. Over the last 10 years, we have people on the left have been fighting on our behalf for our rights. And this time is the call for Muslims to lead their own fights during Islamophobia Awareness Month and work with broad-based alliances from Muslims and other faith. So a lot of colleges and a lot of schools and radio shows are raising awareness about it.
Okay, fantastic, Sister Sahar. Thank you very much for that introduction. Okay, so what are the kind of activities that have been happening? You mentioned about colleges, universities. I mean, there's been a huge campaign, almost silencing those that used to be very active once upon a time, especially Islamic societies, and raising awareness on these kind of political, social issues. So I'm interested to know, I mean, what are the type of activities that are happening on those kind of fronts? Because there's been a lot of pressure and scrutiny when it comes to those arenas, right, and those platforms.
Absolutely. It's ultra scrutiny nowadays, especially with a conservative-led government. As Brother Carrie, Cage, and other Muslim mainstream organizations, not only Cage, but even MEND, MCB, Muslim Association of Britain have become persona non grata under the conservative-led government. The government is only engaging with whom they agree with, and that is the crux of the problem. There has been disengagement between the government and Muslim organization raising awareness about Islamophobia. You have the government pushing for Tell Mama, for example, as an organization that does that, but Tell Mama is quite an independent. And it has previously in the past been funded by the government. So the approach this year for Islamophobia Awareness Month is grassroots, because there's no political engagement at high level, and now is all about activities at a grassroots level with college and schools and so on. And the main thing about it is to talk about the causes of Islamophobia, which one of the main causes of it, and not many people know about it, that there's actually a legal loophole in the current UK law that enables anti-Muslim hatred and Islamophobic comments to be expressed without consequences. We have seen what, for example, Katie Hopkins has said about Muslims, describing, for example, Asian men as rapists. And she has not being persecuted for it. Boris Johnson said, veiled Muslim women look like letterboxes and bank robbers. He hasn't been persecuted for it. They don't know that these kind of words has actually a ripple effect, not only on the victims, but the family and the surrounding. So not a lot of people know about this legal loophole. So how can you find a solution if you don't raise awareness in the first place about it, in order to seal that legal loophole and treat Muslims as equal citizens of this country, as Carrie from Cage said?
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sister Sarah. And with regards to, that grassroots, campaigning, activism, right, and engagement. I mean, you cited some examples of some of those projects and some of those initiatives that are going on. How is the response because I almost, I'm almost getting a sense of, some of the earlier stories that I was discussing, where you get a dichotomy, or you get a sharp contrast between grassroots who understand your sentiments, who understand where you're coming from, and who can totally agree with you, versus bureaucracy and government and houses of power and corridors of power who are perpetuating those problems.
Absolutely, absolutely. We do live in a divisive time, brother, where toxic politics has become the norm. That's the truth. But not surprisingly, at a grassroots level, there is an appetite to create an inclusive society and community. But interestingly, this kind of appetite varies from one region to another. I'm based in Wales and I live in Scotland at the moment. And the appetite is actually more in these areas than England. And even statistically speaking...
Did you say the appetite?
The appetite.
Okay.
The appetite for it.
Appetite for what?
To create an inclusive and just society.
Inclusive. Yes. Okay, fine. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. In England, sadly, because the government is a conservative government, while in Scotland is SNP and in Wales is Labour. So there is more positive responses in Scotland and Wales, but there is more work that needs to be done, not only in terms of raising awareness, but also equipping the Muslims, the victims, especially the victims of Islamophobia, with the tools of reporting. Because even if the government doesn't want, to respond to our asks and demands, it's only some statistics that we can show Islamophobia is a problem. And how can we show these statistics if the victim themselves are not empowered to report every single incident and not see it as trivial?
Right. But sisters, are we not seeing that, whether it's Tell Mama, whether it's some of these other organizations, the feedback and the input from the victims is coming through, as far as I understand? It's not the fact that we don't have statistics that demonstrate the sharp increase in Islamophobic attacks. Is actually what's been actually done about it is where the problem is, right? So the statistics are there, the reports are there, the analysis is there, and it's very, very clear in terms of, whenever one of these incidents happens, and whenever we get these multiple headlines being made by press, by broadsheets, or by tabloid media, or by mainstream media, we see the impact on the Muslim community, right? But what is happening about it is where the $1 million question mark is.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's true. Nothing much is happening at the moment in response to that. And yes, the statistics are not...
Right. So sisters, where are we? I mean, I know other producers, other presenters on Friday Night Live, Brother Zafar in the past, he's had conversations about, conservative parties and their desire, or well, not a lack of desire, rather, to hold an inquiry within the Conservative Party themselves, who are, accused of being Islamophobes, right? In terms of the struggle and the work toward the campaigning towards making this, closing this legal loophole that you were talking about earlier. Giving a legal protection to Muslims, just like the Jewish community, I'm told, are provided. Where is that work? How far do you think with the efforts and the work that you've done, how far are we from achieving that, or how close are we to achieving that, do you think?
I mean, I'm not optimistic with the current Conservative government. I'm not going to lie about it. As you said, there's statistics and research about it, and they're not being taken seriously. And even there are many organizations who are calling for the inquiry about Islamophobia within the Conservative, and the Conservative are actually attempting or trying to dilute the problem by calling it an inquiry to look at inequalities generally in order to deny the problem within the ranks of the party. And the issue is that it's actually obviously not within the interest of the Conservative Party, because in 5 years' time there will be another elections.
Right.
The dynamic of the society will change then, and actually the younger generation, interestingly, are more aware of Islamophobia, and they are more likely to be the voters in the future generations. And I think if the Conservative Party carries on their policies of disengagement, they're going to lose a lot of seats.
Okay, Sister Saha, thank you very much for your very passionate contribution to tonight's conversation. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you very much, and Jazakallah khair.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Very much. Okay, listeners, that was Sister Saha, who was speaking to us as a community organizer, human rights activist with regards to Islamophobia. Inshallah, we're going to go into a commercial break. When we come back, we're discussing Ibn al-Arabi. Don't go away.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Hey, this is Bilal Zafar, Zafar Cakes on Twitter, and make sure you keep listening to Inspire FM on 105.1.
This is an important update about coronavirus. To help save lives, new national restrictions are now in place until the 2nd of December. You must stay at home. Only leave home for food, medical reasons, exercise, education, or work. You must work from home if you can, and avoid travel unless essential. Go to gov.uk/coronavirus for latest guidance and exemptions. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
MK Tiles and Bathroom. We're the specialists for porcelain and ceramic tiles. Visit our new showroom today with all the latest tiles on display. We have a huge range of wall and floor tiles, and we guarantee to beat any genuine quotes. Plus, for a limited time only, you can save up to 25% off selected items. So visit the new MK Tiles and Bathroom showroom, now at 5A Riddy Lane, Luton, LU3 2AD, or call 01582 50 30 30.
Luton's most luxurious venue for Asian weddings is now bigger and better than ever before. With 2 venues to choose from, Venue Central can provide the ultimate setting for your wedding. 2 huge venues, 1 high standard, right in the centre of Luton. Visit us online today at venuecentral.co.uk or call us now on 01582 451 767. Venue Central, affordable luxury in a central location.
Thousands of people who suffered sexual abuse as children have now been heard.
It was wonderful to be finally listened to.
The Truth Project, part of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, will close in 2021. But for now, we're still here to listen, to hear your experience, and help create a safer future for children. Search Truth Project.
How many times have you needed urgent medical supplies but don't know where to go? At Harris Pharmacy, we take pride in delivering a high-level healthcare to our community. This is why we have services such as private one-to-one consultation, free prescription ordering from GP and delivery to your home, mobility aids such as providing wheelchairs and many other items for everyday use. Call us today on free phone 0800 458 2850 to discuss your medical needs. We are open from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. Monday to Friday and 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. on Saturdays. Harris Pharmacy, 165 A/B, Dunstable Road, Luton.
Nearly 1 million people die each year from water, sanitation and hygiene-related diseases which could be reduced with access to safe water or sanitation. You can make a change today. Donating safe water and sanitation contributes to improved health and helps prevent the spread of infectious diseases. Join Families Relief in providing safe, clean drinking water to the neediest around the world by calling 0114 365 4454 or visiting familiesrelief.org.uk.
بسم الله. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الدعاء مخ الإبادة. The supplication is the essence of worship.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7:30.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Friday Night Live. This is your host Hafiz Shaban this evening, and it's just turned past the half an hour, 7:30 p.m. It is Friday the 20th of November, and inshallah ta'ala we are as usual broadcasting live to Luton on 105.1 FM. We are also broadcasting across with our partner stations across the UK. Last but not least, across the social media platforms. So do please remember to like us, like tonight's show on all of those channels. Leave us your comments. Let us genuinely know your thoughts with regards to the stories that we've covered, some of the opinions that have been shared, some of the comments, or any of those questions that have been asked. Or have I been too harsh or have I been too soft? Do let me know. 01582 481 822 07779 481-822 07779-481-822. And as always, we are currently broadcasting live from our makeshift home studios. So sometimes we do get some technical issues, so we do apologize for that in advance, inshallah, and we try to remediate and eliminate those as far as possible. Right, so we've had a very, very packed show. We've had a lot of stories that we've covered. I've actually personally learned a lot during those last few stories, and if I thought I've learned a lot over the last few stories, this last story, like it or not, the whole purpose of this last story was also to continue that exercise of learning. So it's an interesting a concept at Friday Night Live. We do bring to you current affairs, we bring you the hot stories, we bring you the political stories, and we also bring you some of these stories which I think are going to be very, very interesting to our listeners, right? So sometimes there's a debate amongst the team at Friday Night Live whether some of these stories are stories that should be making. There's a lot of demand for all of these stories to be featured on Friday Night Live, so sometimes there is an interesting debate. I thought the next story is worthy of discussing on Friday Night Live, and this is life of Ibn al-Arabi, right? So Ibn al-Arabi, I mean, it's very, very interesting because if I asked you about Ibn al-Arabi about, maybe 5-6 years ago, I don't think a lot of us would have heard of Ibn Arabi, right? But it actually happens that, a lot of us have become, fanatical Ertugrul fans, right? And, as a result of watching Ertugrul and watching the last 5 series for the last couple of years, one of the characters within obviously Ertugrul has been Ibn Arabi, and it caught my attention this week, right? So some of these messages that go around was that Ibn Arabi, of course, passed away in this week, 16th of November in 1240. Of course, the famous Arab Andalusian Islamic scholar, theologian, philosopher, and so on and so forth, died in Damascus back in 1240. And of course, I thought it's going to be very interesting, actually. Why don't we actually cover this story? Why don't we actually cover it from a perspective of trying to know more about the life of Ibn Arabi, his contributions to society, his contribution to his era, his writings, his scholarsism, both in terms of those that are in favor of some of his writing and his opinions, and those who are actually also critical, right? Because I think it's very important to have both sides of the spectrum. And before we get into the conversation, I mean, just like I gave you a quick overview in terms of some of the stories that we cover and why we cover some of those stories, I think it's also important to mention we have a number of personalities, we have a number of guests, number of views that are discussed and entertained on Friday Night Live, and that is not necessarily an endorsement of Friday Night Live. It's not necessarily a view of Inspire FM or Friday Night Live. We like to discuss, and we might agree, disagree, good or bad, and no one is without their critics, right? Anyway, so that's the opening disclaimer. Let's go to some of our experts who are going to hopefully shed light on this subject matter, right? So who do we have? We have firstly Cecilia. Hopefully I get the name right. Is it Cecilia Twinch?
That's right, yes. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Hello.
So I've just been told by my team that my introductions are really poor. So I want to make sure my introduction for the last story this evening is going to be spot on, right? So it's Cecilia, Senior Research Fellow of the Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi Society, Oxford. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Fantastic. And we also got, mashallah, our Honorable Sheikh Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Great to have you and great to see you, mashallah. Hope you're doing well.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. All right. So we've got Sheikh Ahmed also from the Luton Islamic Center to give us an Islamic view and an Islamic, oversight. But let's go to you first, Cecilia, because of course this story caught my attention, and I thought, let's cover this. And in my introduction, you would have heard that, of course, I think Ibn Arabi's profile has really been kind of catapulted right up there as a result of this Turkish saga, 12th century, 13th century saga, Ertugrul, and this figure that keeps coming along on his travels, this great figure that comes and gives this fantastic advice to the political leaders of that time, and he's become very, very famous, but probably very little is known about Ibn Arabi.
Well, I haven't been following the series myself. Of course, I've heard. I'm very pleased that it's made Ibn Arabi better known in many countries. I understand it's now being shown also in Pakistan at the request of Imran. So I'm very pleased that he's becoming better known from this medium. Also becoming better known in the West. He's always been known. I mean, he was born in Spain, in Murcia, in Al-Andalus, as it was then, southern Spain, and most of his time, the first part of his life, in Seville, where he moved with his family when he was 7. And then as a young man, he traveled a lot in North Africa, in the Maghreb, in Tunisia and Morocco and Algeria. And then halfway through his life, he went to, he traveled on the pilgrimage. So he went overland, a very long journey, of course. And on the way, he visited among other places, he visited the tomb of Abraham and the birthplace of Prophet Muhammad in Medina. And then he traveled throughout. He spent the rest of his life, second half of his life, traveling through what we now call the Middle East, Anatolia. So he was up in Turkey, and he died in Damascus. The date was given 16th of November. I think it was actually the 19th of November 1240, but it was the 22nd of Rabi' Thani, which I think falls 7th this year. But a wonderful occasion to remember his life.
Okay, fantastic. And okay, so thank you very much, Cecilia, for that introduction. What about with regards to his him as a person, right? So a cursory, kind of a search for Ibn Arabi on the net, brings up, Islamic scholar, theologian, philosopher, a Sufi, a poet, a traveler. How do you kind of summarize Ibn Arabi as a person?
Well, he had an amazing life, and I do recommend to anybody who would like to know more about him. There is a lot written about him. If you look on the Ibn Arabi Society.org website, you'll be able to find more leads, more information, articles, and more about his thoughts. But in general, he was a poet, philosopher, mystic. I think that some people would say that he would call him a philosopher, but for himself, I think there's a very famous story about when he was a very young man, still a beardless youth. he says, without any hair on his face, so probably about 15 years old, when he met the great philosopher Averroes, known as Ibn Rushd in the Muslim world. And this was because Averroes had heard from Ibn Arabi's father, who was a great friend of his, that he had had a lot of mystical unveilings and illuminations during a period of retreat as a very young man, and wanted to meet him. And as Ibn Arabi was sent to his house in Cordova, and as he came through into the house, Averroes rose up to greet him and warmly embraced him, and then said, "Yes." And Ibn Arabi stepped back a bit and said, "No." And Averroes was very taken aback and said, "Well, is what you have found through mystical illumination and inspiration, divine inspiration, the same as what is arrived at through speculative thought?" And Ibn Arabi said, "Yes, no." Between the yes and the no, spirits take flight beyond matter. And that Averroes turned pale and said, "There is no power nor strength saving God," because this is the age-old dilemma between philosophy and reason and mystical unveiling.
Exactly. I was going to say when it goes into philosophy and mysticism and then you try to also then reconcile that with religion, I think that's where also the controversies also emerge, don't they? Because he's not a person and generally mysticism and Sufism is not without its critics. And without and Islamic, especially Islamic critics, and there's other scholars who would say, look, they've actually gone beyond this limit. So he wasn't without his controversies. I don't know to what extent during his time that he lived, because I wonder whether Ibn Taymiyyah was around at a similar time frame. I think he was, wasn't he?
Later.
Later, Ibn Taymiyyah came around later. Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah.
I mean, certainly. He was a man of great knowledge. He didn't deny the use of the intellect. He was completely versed in the Quran, in the Hadith, in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was completely within the religion and very, very simple. But he also had these mystical unveilings and intuitions. And he's been very much misquoted, misunderstood. Very often lines taken out of his work, out of context, because one of the wonderful things about him is he will say one thing which is true at one level, but we always have to remember whether he's talking about the divine, the absolute,
in what context,
which contains everything, or whether he's talking about God as the creator in relation to the created. So it depends on your point of view, and we always have to bear this in mind. The point of view.
Okay, appreciate that, Cecilia. I think let's bring in Sheikh Ahmed, who's been listening to us very, very patiently, mashallah. I just wanted to get that introduction. So let's go to Sheikh Ahmed. Sheikh Ahmed, okay. So, we have a lot of philosophers and a lot of mystics and, Islamic, personalities in the past. And of course, then when they actually start, writing and exploring this area, sometimes it becomes in that kind of very uncomfortable area when we start saying certain things which can perhaps have more than one meaning. It's almost we're going into a dangerous territory. And of course, Ibn al-Arabi, I'm sure there's, subhanallah, I was reading that over 800 works are attributed to Ibn Arabi. I'm sure. I'm sure some of that is not without its controversies. What are your thoughts on the Islamic scholasticism perspective, Ahmed?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. One of the beauty things about Islam, that Islam came to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with a clear message. So you'll find from day one, every word revealed to Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was clear. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wasn't a philosopher. He was a very simple man, and he was dealing with simple people in Mecca at that time. So the message in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about different issues in the Quran. When you go in this 6 ayahs in the Holy Quran, you'll find all the ayahs in the Quran clear. Sometimes maybe the Mufassirin, they have different views about it, but all the time I'm saying, when this Quran revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was saying it to the people at that time, the people received it as it is, without trying to manipulate it, giving it four, five explanation and all of these things. So this is very important issue that I need to say before I go to Muhyiddin bin Arabi or any other. Now, the problem with the philosophy and how Muhyiddin ibn Arabi brought up and what he studied and all of that things, he went through that path, which is the path of philosophy, and he done a lot of studies, and he took from Aflaton and Aristotle and all of these things. And obviously, when we talk about Ibn Rushd, that the sister mentioned, Ibn Rushd himself is a philosopher, and Al-Ghazali, he replied to him, and he wrote that great book Tahafut al-Falasifa. Then he replied to Tahafut and all of these things. The main problem came with the ideas of the Sufism in Islam, that it was a mix between Islam as a clear religion and the other philosophies which came from Greek, from Persia, and the people who was there. And also it has links with what the Indian used to believe at that time and others. So this is where the problem with Ibn al-Arabi. So Ibn al-Arabi, he obviously he wrote many books. This is why Sheikh al-Islam bin Taymiyyah at the beginning, he read his books, and until he reached the Al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah and Fusus al-Hikam. So before that, you can see in many of the works of Ibn al-Arabi that it was fine, and even they used to study it in circles. Then when it comes to Fusus al-Hikam, here the ideas of Ibn al-Arabi came. And I went through al-Fusus, not all of it, obviously, because this needs months to study, but just quick going around it. That, I thought, and I seen that the main idea that Ibn al-Arabi talking about is Wahdat al-Wujud. So what's Wahdat al-Wujud? Wahdat al-Wujud means that the unity of being, means that the only fact on this earth is Allah. So, and Allah can be manifested through me, through you, through the stone, through the animal, through all of these things. And this is why you'll find some of the saying of Ibn Arabi. Many scholars, they consider this is, cannot go with the monotheism, the tawheed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to do. For example, he said about the people of Nuh, if they had turned away from their worship of their idols, Wood, Suwa', Yaghuth, and Ya'uq, they would have lost more of al-haq.
I've seen some of those statements, Sheikh Ahmed. But let me go back to Cecilia. I mean, this is inevitable, isn't it? There's going to be this debate when you have writers who are very profound and very deep, and they go into this a completely different world almost. And when you're looking at someone who's a very Puritan and a purist, and he's looking at against a very clear distinction, he's going to clearly see there's a slippage here from what is accepted and not accepted.
Yeah, well, even Arabi himself didn't use the term Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of existence. certainly he upholds completely the Surah Al-Ikhlas, say God is one, Kul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad. He completely upholds this view that God is the only being in existence at every level. That is not at all the same, because he says that you are no other than God, is not at all the same as saying that a thing is the same as God. Because
but I don't want to. Yeah, Cecilia. So I don't necessarily. I don't want to necessarily. Yeah, I'll let you finish.
Everything in manifestation is a self-revelation of God in some form or other. He's completely in line with Tawheed, saying that there is nothing else in existence but the one existent, which is is God, which includes everything.
Sure.
I mean, God encompasses everything.
Yeah.
This is exactly what you are saying is wahdatul wujud.
Yeah, exactly. I get that. But let me just speak to Cecilia. Cecilia, I mean, in terms of his contribution to obviously from a historical perspective, we can look back at it and we can look at the output and the products and his writings. But also at his time, I mean, his contribution to his society, that the Osmani or the Seljuk, era of that time. What was his contribution to the political leadership, and how was his spiritual guidance for the political leadership of that time? Was he a man involved within the political circles, as it is shown in the Arthurul series, for example? Being a source of spiritual guidance, for the political leadership at that time, or was it quite far from that?
I imagine quite a lot of that has been fabricated, but certainly he did move in. He did move in circles where, with people, for example, Majduddin al-Rumi, who was the father of Sadruddin Konavi, the great contemporary of Jalaluddin Rumi of Konya, and he sometimes there was spiritual guidance which was probably relayed to the leaders, but no direct. I think that there's probably quite a lot of
embellishment. I'm sure there's a lot of embellishment.
Yes.
And then what about? I mean, this is just incredible. I mean, this is just not about Ibn Arabi. I mean, whether you look to Ibn Taymiyyah, whether you look to I forgot Ibn Kathir, or whether you look to other scholars too. I mean, the volumes that they wrote in an incredible short time. The name that I was thinking of was Imam An-Nawawi. I mean, within 20 or 30 years, 800 pieces of work, and some of these.
Actually, it's not that many. It's probably about 300, because a lot of the works attributed to Ibn Arabi weren't really written by him. Ibn Arabi started doing a lot of work to just find the authentic works. And
even 300 pieces of work within that kind of period is a lot of work. And you're actually handwriting all of this. You haven't got the technology of just typing away, right? So that's quite an incredible feat from a scholasticism perspective, surely, isn't it?
Yes, because he was writing under divine inspiration. So he wasn't writing. He wasn't. He was just being dictated from within, if you like.
Inspired, isn't it?
The Sus al-Hikam, for example, the Ringstones of Wisdom, he says that he was given the book in a dream by the Prophet, peace and blessings upon him. And so he just brought it from the realm of the invisible into the realm of the visible through his writing. So it was as though he was a channel for this to appear in this world.
So I mean, apart from mysticism and kind of the Sufism world, what else? What other topics did he write upon? I mean, he was a poet, of course, wasn't he? So there was a lot of poetry too. Was there other? I mean, did he write on fiqh matters, Islamic jurisprudence?
In the Futuhat al-Makkiyah, apparently he has about 1,000 pages on every aspect of the law and how to blute, every aspect you'd want to ask about. So he puts forward different ways of seeing this, and so yes, he very well versed in every aspect of it.
All right, so we're running out of time. So let me go back to Sheikh Ahmed. Sheikh Ahmed, I mean, as a general guidelines, I mean, whether it's Ibn Arabi, whether it's scholars today in the 20th century, and we have similar kind of figures and similar kind of thinking. We have philosophy and we have mysticism and all sorts of kind of trends. What's the general guidelines here? Because I mean, some of us can be very deep. I remember, a couple of friends that I had, Oxford, but sometimes whether you're Oxford or whether you're Cambridge or Harvard, we got to be a bit careful how far our thinking, I don't know, travels, in what direction it travels to. What's the kind of general guidelines that you would give very quickly?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this clear in the Holy Quran. He said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul. So all you who believe, obey Allah and obey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. How we obey Allah? The Quran is there. How we obey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? By the authentic Sunnah. Right. So you'll find when you go to the Holy Quran as it is, the authentic Sunnah as it is, you'll not be misguided, and
stick to it, basically. Stick to
the story about that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to him and gave him obviously it is a fabricated story, there is no doubt about it, because and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam will not, if he'd like to come to give solutions.
Yes, exactly. I get that. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Cecilia Twin from Oxford and Sheikh Ahmed, unfortunately, we've run out of time. But inshallah, until next time, thank you very much for joining us on Friday Night Live. That's it. Inshallah. Thank you very much for listening to Friday Night Live. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Until next week, it is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.